right, hello everyone, and welcome to this fantastic webinar. And we have some incredible speakers for you today. We're going to be discussing how to use Salesforce as your single source of truth. And although that sounds like a very simple subject, it's actually very, very broad, and it's going to apply to a lot of different things. So I'd like to introduce our incredible speakers today. So first up, we've got Michael. Michael is, of course, the founder of Reinteractive. And is also the current CEO of Store Connect, which you may have heard of. Michael, do you want to tell us just a little bit about that?
Yeah, totally. You might have noticed at the start I'm bouncing around and bopping everywhere. That music's pretty entertaining. But I have to say, Errol was madly SMSing me going, "You're live," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." It's all good. But yeah, no, I'm the founder of Reinteractive. Started that in 2010, so almost a decade and a half since I started Reinteractive. About
more,
yeah. Wow. Anyway, about I want to say 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we started Store Connect inside of Reinteractive. Reinteractive actually built Store Connect, the first version, and about 4 years ago, I stepped back from my role in Reinteractive and handed the reins over to Kane and Errol and the team at Reinteractive, and have let them carry on that beacon. And Store Connect fundamentally is a complete e-commerce point of sale content management system that's built inside of Sales Cloud. So unlike the other solutions you can have with e-commerce where there's sort of separate systems or they've got an integration into Salesforce, everything you do with Store Connect is from within Salesforce. So it's a very powerful platform. And we're doubling every 3 months at the moment. It's pretty wild.
It's a magnificent success.
It's really growing really, really well. Yeah. It's, an 8-year overnight success, as they say.
Yeah, right. And a testament to exactly what we're speaking about today, which is trying to keep 100%. Everything on one platform.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It's not the easiest thing to do, I have to say, but
this is why not everyone's a founder.
Yeah, it's like medicine. Sometimes it doesn't taste so good going down, but you get a lot of benefits in the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we also have Robert Lopez in the golden hoodie. So
that's so
Robert,
on brand for you, Robert. I got to say, gold.
Come on, the golden hoodie had to make an appearance here today.
Robert, tell us a bit about yourself. Tell us who you are. I mean, I think a lot of people listening right now are probably going to know exactly who you are, but tell us anyway.
Yeah, look, Rob Lopez, former Chief Marketing Innovation Officer at North Collective, and really drove the digital transformation journey of that organization, underpinned by Salesforce, of course. And, I guess over the last 8 years, really my focus has been on sustainable digital transformation based around a single source of customer truth. And we'll talk about it today, but to be honest, the power that a company can harness simply by a good strategic objective that leads to a really sound, single source of customer truth is just astronomical and something that excites me every day still.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. Tell us actually a little bit more about that former organization that you worked for, Norths, that obviously you set up an ecosystem that was all built around a single platform. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the architecture of that and how you hooked everything up together?
Yeah, sure. So, like a lot of companies, there's many siloed systems. A lot of customer systems, point of sale, ticketing, we had fitness centers with their own data. We had, I think, around 13 or 14 siloed platforms, all housing really valuable customer data, transactional, demographical, behavioral, engagement data. And so back in 2019, we started the build out, and we brought in Salesforce. And really, we started with Service Cloud, Marketing Cloud, analytics, and we brought all of these data through a middleware layer. We brought all this data into the one single source of truth to give us that single view of a member. And over each year, we enhanced that. So we brought in our app, which we'll talk to a little bit later, through the power of Heroku, using that same single source of customer truth to give our members even better and more real-time customer experience opportunities across our organization through the app. And, most recently we went live. We were the first APAC customer to go live with a customer-facing agent through Agentforce back in January. Yeah, look at you agent blazer, you. So that was really exciting too. And this sort of agentic era, the next frontier, as I call it, is a really exciting one, because the power of the data that we've got and what we built, combined with the power of what AI can do, really allows for an exciting future.
Yeah. We were talking just earlier today, actually just before we went live, about how when an organization first starts to set up, in those early days, Michael will relate to this, and they don't always have a great idea of what their future looks like, and they should, because setting up in those early days, what tools are you going to use, how are you going to hook them up, where are you going to connect them to, that really sets the whole tone for how that organization is going to move forward. Try to tackle that 5 years later once the organization's scaled, and it's a headache.
It comes down to there's a balance as well, right? When you're a small company, there's no point trying to set up Netflix scale systems. You're just going to kill yourself on the process. But you need to pick something that you can extend without having to rebuild from scratch. The last thing you want to do is you've jumped off the cliff, the acceleration is happening, and now halfway down the cliff face, you've got to remove a whole platform and put something else in, doing open heart surgery on your business as you're flying down that slope. And that's probably where I think, for us at least, that's why we decided to build on top of Salesforce. Is, it is a very complex system. It's very capable in many different aspects. But if you are a small business, medium business, large business, and you're looking to scale further, if you can do something now that can build in a bit of that scale expansion room, I guess is probably the best way to put it. You don't want to buy clothes. It's like you're buying for a 5-year-old kid, right? You want to buy slightly larger clothes than what they're currently wearing, because in 6 months they're going to hit the seams, and that's that, right?
Right.
So that's sort of where I'd be focusing that.
Right. I'm a fan of saying to people, like, you don't build like you're at that scale yet, but you also have to build with the viewpoint of don't shut any doors that are going to be hard to fix later. Like, understand what that future state's going to look like, and don't work your way out of that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Robert, tell us why Salesforce? Why did you choose Salesforce as, here's the tool that we're going to center things around, and the hub that you're going to connect the spokes to?
Yeah, I remember back in the investigation phase, before we actually signed the dotted line, I looked at a few platforms, and Salesforce definitely stood out. We're a profit for purpose organization, and we're built on the foundation of trust with our members, our community. They trust us to do right by them. And Salesforce's first core value is trust, and their customers, like us, trust them with our customer data and with our digital transformation journey. So we aligned on our core values. Innovation really was the next key factor for us, because we knew we wanted to scale pretty quickly, like we just spoke about. And Salesforce was a partner that was going to allow us to do that. Really good community around them of support, of partners, of other customers, and their customizability, the ability for us to really build out what we needed to achieve our goals. Their platform just allowed for full, customization across our ecosystem. So there was a number of reasons that we partnered up. And people say Salesforce is the Rolls Royce. And one thing I learned early on is, if you're buying a Rolls Royce, one person in the driver's seat. You need passengers. You need people on that journey with you in your beautiful Rolls Royce. But very quickly, especially in our marketing cloud early days, I tried to train my entire marketing team in best use of marketing cloud, and I found very early that really doesn't work. You've got to choose a champion, and that champion drives the value and the outcomes out of the platform. You take others on the journey with you, and they've got aligned sort of outcomes and goals, but you need that core key person to drive the platform and the value out of it for the organization.
I think that's underspoken about, actually, Errol, in the Salesforce ecosystem. In the modern world of SaaS and the other players in the room, the HubSpots, the Mondays, all of these other ones, there's a level of, well, if I just buy the product, it should just work, right? And that's true. But I think as we move into this agentic era and future, I think there's going to be a shift in the way people approach software systems, away from I've installed this product, it should just do the thing, and more to, I need to train the product on how I want it to do the thing and teach it. And I think Salesforce is in a very unique position here because they've got this whole agentic layer underneath them. And to give you an idea of the flexibility of the Salesforce platform, you can't look further than Store Connect. We've literally built an entire Shopify, WordPress, and point of sale system within Salesforce, right? I mean, that's ridiculous in terms of the complexity capabilities, right? But I think there's going to be more and more where, speaking to Rob's point, you need to have a driver. You need to, you're not going to buy $1 million Rolls Royce and use it as your daily driver. I mean, you might if you're really rich, but you're probably going to have a chauffeur that knows how to look after it and get it maintained and do all these other things that you need to do. And I think that's going to be something that's going to happen even more, where you need to train this agent. Otherwise, you're basically spending 1, 2, 3 staff members worth of wages and you're not actually getting any benefit out of it. And worse, your staff are not getting any benefit out of it because the thing's just being underutilized.
Yeah, absolutely. And what then to that point on innovation, Rob brought that up. You can, and I'm sure many of our listeners are going to be thinking this right now, okay, you run a business. How soon do you jump on the trend? How soon do you go, we're going to forge the way on this? Or do you sit back and let someone else do it?
I actually had someone ask me on LinkedIn a couple of days, well, they didn't actually ask me, but they're a follower of mine and they asked it and it came up on my thing and I responded. And they said, look, I'm running a small Shopify store. Is Salesforce the right move for me? Right. And it really made me think about this because we have some clients. We've got one client, Health Masters, who are using Agentforce on their website, and they do really amazing practitioner stuff and help people get healthy. And Reinteractive did the whole Agentforce build on that. It was fantastic. But they only have 3 staff, and they're on Store Connect and Salesforce, and they have 3 staff, right, running this whole business. And the reason that they can do that is that they've spent the money to build in the automations to do the other aspects.
Right. They've invested early.
Yeah. But I think the point is, and I made this to the person who asked me this question or asked the question, I said, look, if you're running a micro business and it's a lifestyle business and you don't really want to grow it, to be state capturing or nation capturing or a worldwide, force, Salesforce probably isn't the right thing for you, because the amount of time you're going to spend on getting it up to speed would be better spent in just getting some more marketing leads. But if your plan is to really grow this thing, not necessarily headcount, but you want to double or triple or quadruple in the next 2, 3, 4 years, then yeah, you got to start investing in the right tools, because there's no point trying to do this in something that's just not going to make it. It's like if you're planning to fly from here to Hobart, you could probably do it in a single engine Cessna. But if you're planning to fly to LA, you're not going to make it in a Cessna. It doesn't matter how.
You need the Learjet.
It's just not, or maybe not even a Learjet. You're going to need something that's got the range. And sorry, if Learjet have the range and I've just trained you, I'm very sorry. And I am not an aviation expert, nor am I a lawyer. You can absolutely do it.
I'm sure Learjets are great.
And Learjet, my sponsorship details are attached to the bio if you want to have me as a influencer of yours. But yeah, you need the right tool for the job. And I think the right tool in this case comes down to, where do you want to take the company? And if there's a lot of expansion in your future, or that's what your vision is, then investing a bit earlier will get you there faster. If that's not in your immediate future, stick with what you've got and expand later. Here's another good example. I know I'm hogging the mic here, but friends of ours at Beyond Plumbing, they're a fantastic Store Connect customer. They're about to do some other stuff and expand, but they formed their business to sell plumbing supplies to plumbers, by plumbers. They're 3 plumbers. And in their own words, they're like, we knew nothing about technology. We just wanted to run a plumbing website, and we wanted to sell it to plumbers because we were sick of our clients getting the same pricing that we were getting on the website. We wanted to have a plumber community and build a community. Fantastic. they started their business, and the first three things they did basically was buy Salesforce, Store Connect, and Google Apps.
Right.
And they've just massively increased their business. But they had a viewpoint of where they wanted to take it. And so they went early on the technology. So that's really, I think, where the break point is. It's not, are we big enough for Salesforce? It's, are we planning to grow where we're going to outscale the current tooling or the other options? And that's really more the cutover point. What do you think?
And that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. That's what you did, Rob. That's what you did. You went, okay, we want to grow this thing. We've got these tools available to us. Let's go.
100%. And, I've spoken with over 100 Salesforce customers, reference sessions, etc., talking about our journey, talking about experience and understanding their pain points. And I always start with the same question. My question always is, what is your why? Before I go anywhere with any conversation. Because if I think back to when we started, our why is connecting our community. That's our purpose. And everything we did, every project that formed part of our digital transformation journey always came back to connecting our community. It's important for companies to really build your strategic objectives, but then understand the steps you're going to take to get there. Because as was said, Salesforce it's a beast. It is, and it's a phenomenal beast if used correctly and efficiently. And you can do so much with it. But I'm a true believer in walking before you run, and I think it's a great example of just that. So we really, I scoped each year out with a key theme. So we had, a year of personalization, a year of ROI, a year of AI, and we focused on that for the year to allow us to have more palatable chunks along the way. And as we achieved things, we could tick them off our list, and then we worked on enhancing them as we went into each year. But as you said, I think if you've got the right people in the right seats in the vehicle, you can achieve so much more together.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that point that you just made of looking at what is that bigger goal of the business. It's not, making money, sure, absolutely important and needs to be there, but it's not the reason you're doing it. If it's just make money, then you're probably going to find the cheapest, nastiest solution you can find that just gets the job done. And don't worry about what's falling apart as you're doing it. You're looking at a bigger thing, like how do we look after the plumbing industry? How do we look after the trades in plumbing? How do we make sure that our members are properly looked after and have a great experience and love the club? And, like these things are more important. And if you do those well, the money comes in regardless.
That's right. I love the concept of a North Star goal. And, as a marketing team, I took my team for an offsite and we developed what we believe our company's North Star goal should be. And that was, increasing happy, engaged, loyal members. Because if we know that we're increasing our happy, engaged, loyal members, then they're going to visit and frequent our venues more. The more they frequent, the more we can give back to the community. So, it's a nice story and a nice way to look at it, but it also makes it far more digestible across the organization when you can really, articulate the vision and the objective of the company. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm going to shift the direction of the conversation just slightly because I want to get onto the subject of AI. And the reason, obviously, it's everywhere that you look, but what is lacking is really good conversation around clear business use cases for AI. And it's not lacking because they don't exist. There are many, many very good use cases, but people are getting a little bit lost in the weeds and they're getting a little bit scared by things like data integrity and bias in the results and things like that. And instead that's probably because they're using the wrong tools or they're going about it the wrong way. So Salesforce utilizes an agentic layer, an AI layer within Salesforce. Rob, can you tell us a little bit about how you've implemented that? And then I'm going to ask Michael exactly the same question because I know you both have different experiences in this.
Yeah, definitely. So, we started with use cases because I think with AI, you've got to have clearly defined use cases and don't go too hard, too fast. Keep it simple, keep it basic. So we went live with Agentforce in January this year. So we were actually the first APAC customer to go live
Early,
with
yeah.
customer-facing Agentforce instance, which was exciting. And our first phase was really just giving our members and community the opportunity to get 24/7 responses. Rather than having to call our contact center, they're able to ask questions. What time does this venue open? What does membership cost? What are the benefits of membership? And it would use knowledge articles, looking up knowledge articles to respond. It was really successful. Like, we found 1 in 3 messaging sessions actually took place after 7 p.m. and before 9 a.m. So 33% of our messaging sessions, of our 2,000 messaging sessions between January and May, were actually taking place when our call center was closed anyway. And we went in there with a goal of, in the first 12 months, we wanted to reduce the inbound calls to our call center by 20%, because we did some research, we did the due diligence, and we found out that around 40% of the calls that are going into the call center are low to no value or general calls. They're not really value driving for the business. They're not somebody calling about booking a 100-person corporate event at the Greens.
They just want to know what time you're open.
They want to know, can they wear thongs? I said that actually on stage at Connections.
That's an important question, especially if you plan to go to a Qantas business lounge or something.
Yes.
Right.
Doesn't matter who you are. Kate Sobrano got kicked out because she had sandals on, you know.
Any Americans watching, I apologize. Flip-flops. They got a bit awkward about it when I said it on stage.
In Australia, a thong is what's called a flip-flop in America.
Yes, flip-flops. And so we wanted to give the most precious resource back to our call center. Time for them to focus on the high-value calls, returning calls to maybe corporates that haven't booked in 6 months for a corporate event, maybe following up. And it was great to see that in the first 4 months, we'd reduced inbound calls by 10%.
Right.
And we'd seen forward bookings increase at the same time. So we're giving time back to the call center. It was actually so positive that we sped up the go live early June, and we enhanced our agent to offer self-service to the member. So it does verification and validation by sending text to the member to validate who they are, and they can then update their personal details, change their marketing preferences, move restaurant reservations at any of our venues to a new date or time. So we introduced self-service as a second phase. So we had those 2 use cases, and we started small and got a little bit bigger, and we found really good success in doing that.
Yeah, great. Michael, you can probably talk to the technical aspect of this, which is these chatbots are only as good as the data they have available to them. And that comes back to our purpose for speaking today, which is that single source of truth.
Yeah. Look, before I even get into that, I think it's important to call out that there was an MIT report, I think it was the end of last year, that it was actually released, that 95% of agentic AI projects are failing. Like that's an incredible number. And this is from MIT. This isn't just some random crowd, right? Yeah. So MIT did a survey and 95% of the projects are failing. And you go, well, okay, why? Why? And it's a really interesting point. And I think the why, the way you find a why on something like that is you go, well, what's the counterpoint? What are the 5% that are succeeding and what are they doing that the 95 aren't? And I think it really relates back to what Rob just went over. You've got to come up with a reason to do it that actually makes sense. And we've been talking to a whole bunch of Store Connect clients in terms of how to do AI on their website and build things out. And you'd be surprised at how small you can actually start with AI. And I think what you need to do as a business owner or someone looking to implement this is, what are our customers, our clients asking for that we can't scale to provide with enough resources efficiently that could be done by AI? So a really simple thing like, can I wear flip-flops to this event? Or, when does the door open on Tuesday? Or how many guests can I bring in on a weekend? Or whatever the question is. A lot of that sort of just general FAQ type stuff, frequently asked questions stuff, is really, really valuable for an AI. And once you've got that engagement going, start monitoring what are some of the other questions that are being asked that aren't resolving. one of the when we launched AI on our website, it got launched, and if you look at it, we've actually called him Steve the trainee AI support agent, right? And for those that don't know, Steve is our mascot at Store Connect. He's a Tasmanian devil. He's pretty awesome.
There's Steve.
And this is Steve. Hello, world. Steve's amazing. But we've really called out that this is Steve, and we've got his face on it, so people know it's not, actually
Personalized.
And it's personalized. But we've also called out that it's an AE trainee, right? So that people know what they're dealing with. And I made my team put a really big button at the top of the chat, which just says simply, talk to a human, right? So that if that agent's not achieving what you want, don't put the person into an endless loop of garbage. Get them to the human, right? And then take those datums and work out, right, what's the next thing that our clients aren't getting from us or are asking the AI agent that we're not able to handle? How can we deliver that to them? You might not be able to with the current state of AI, to be blunt. You might. But this is sort of where I think one of the advantages of the way Salesforce is approaching this is really quite intelligent, is that they've created a programming layer effectively for the agent. So they've created a environment in which you can define very clearly defined tasks which have limited scope and capability of modifying your Salesforce environment and putting guardrails around that. Now, this is a wild world of security. There's been, all sorts of things going on in this area, but I think that's quite a smart approach. There's a really good saying in management: when someone wants to help you, accept their help conditionally, right? Don't just blindly accept that Joe's coming in to help you in the company.
Right, and it's going to do that, yeah.
And it's going to do it. Take them on, say, yeah, you can help me, but monitor that, right? You've got to monitor it. And you have to do the same with AI agents. You can't just blindly hand over the keys. I think my most famous example of this is when, I think it was Hyundai, put an AI agent on their website. Might not be Hyundai, maybe it was Toyota. I can't remember. And someone went onto the website and recorded their chat session with the AI agent and said, look, I'm looking at buying an EV. What should I get? And the agent said, the best EV you can buy right now is a Tesla. So
very honest.
That might be the correct answer. Is it the answer you want to present right then? Maybe not.
No.
You got to accept this help conditionally, and you need to take your rollout with AI with that same pinch of salt. You need to go, okay, yeah, we'll let it loose, but we want to monitor those results. And if you're approaching AI in any other way than that, and expecting it just to be a silver bullet for your company, it won't be. Even from the point that everyone else is doing AI, so any benefit you're going to get from the silver bullet will get eaten up by everyone else's equal advancement anyway, right? So you're going to have to do this intelligently anyway. I don't know if that answers the question, but
it does. But there's a step before that even, which is the integrity of the data. If I have inside Salesforce or any CRM, I have Mikel Lindsaar, but the account is Store Connect. And I also have Mikel Lindsaar and the account is reinteractive. This is a real example. This actually exists today.
In our CRM twice.
Right. And then I ask the AI bot, which company does Mikel Lindsaar work for? What's it going to do?
Yeah.
And, 50% of the time, I assume that answer is going to be wrong or at least be confused.
Yeah.
So we have to have data that's correct in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is that AI follows the same rules of computing, and which is very simply bullshit in, bullshit out. Right. So if your data is incorrect, you're not going to get anywhere. And there's the other aspect that generative AI only has access to the data that exists on the internet. So if that data doesn't exist, you're not going to get the right answers.
Right. It knows only that box.
Which is read. Yeah. It can infer stuff, and it's very, very good at that. But at that point, you're starting to go into, well, is this hallucination or is this inference? And that's a challenge. But yeah, it really, if you're looking at doing AI and you're looking to really get into this, figure out something that you've got control over that you can actually hand off. FAQs is great. customer onboarding questions if they're known and you've got a very specific list of requirements of information you need to get out of a client. That can be great. Things like this. Get your feet wet in something that is easily definable by you and easily verifiable as working. And if you can get those two things, that's a great project to start your AI journey on, because you can measure its success.
Absolutely. And then Robert, like when you're consulting a new client and you're discussing, okay, you're going to set up your systems. We're talking about single source of truth. How do you advise them with the outcome of the AI knows that this piece of information is reasonably correct?
I always start with, you can't spell pain without AI. So remember things, but you can't spell painless without AI either. So, you know, it goes both ways.
That's ridiculous.
Yes.
If there was
that's going to be the
example, that's it. Yeah.
I think, you know, there's two aspects. There's change management and stakeholder management, and they both formed part of our AI journey. So when I'm talking to a client or a customer or anybody going on an AI journey, I say, right, before you even worry about that, before you start looking at use cases and even your data, let's understand how you're going to manage your stakeholders internally, maybe externally, and how you're going to manage, you know, the change within the company. And part of that is the data, because the foundation of your data will either deem what you're doing successful or unsuccessful right from the beginning. You know, we found early on, it was an early finding, thank God, that it was the agent was getting confused because our group was called North's Collective and our main venue is called North's Cameron. So it was actually finding it hard to differentiate between the two. So we had to create, again, more guardrails and more specifics in the building of the agents to alleviate that. And so data is critical. And as we say, rubbish in, rubbish out, same thing. So I think it's important for a company, in the way we approached it, the stakeholder management started with the sort of C-suites, what were their key outcomes or wants or drivers or must-haves, and then those sort of senior managers, you know, who manage the contact center team directly. What are your key drivers? Is it around efficiency? What are you wanting? And then those at the coalface. What are you wanting out of this? You know, they want time back because they find more value in a conversation where they're trying to upsell or get a customer to book a 400-person event as opposed to the thongs. So, you know, having those conversations, but also putting mind at ease, because we wanted to make sure that our contact center staff knew that this wasn't there to replace them. The technology is not there to replace you, because human in the loop is critical, especially if you're a customer-facing organization. You need to have that customer engagement and interaction. You've got to have that readily available.
Right.
We wanted their mind at ease. So that was a big part. Then the change management came in, and that's where data cleanup took place. Now, fortunately, we'd gone through a whole data cleanup piece, deduplication and that sort of stuff, harmonization. So we'd done that earlier in the year. So we were sort of pretty good, 95% of the way there. But that would be part of that change management piece, and really understanding, well, what does your data look like? You know, let's get a data and then a score, and let's understand how we're going to get that data to a point where we're happy and confident that the outcomes of the AI implementation are going to be sound. And that's what you're going to get to. Then you can start looking at, well, what data do we have? What data, what are the quick wins and the use cases we can drive for this AI project?
Yeah, because it's not just about, like, might be disparate sources of data. Like you might have a record for Robert Lopez here or a record for Robert Lopez here, and they don't quite match. But then within the one system as well, you're going to have things like typos and duplicates and dummy data and things like that. Like that's all part of that data cleanup.
Yeah, and you know, fuzzy logic is really important. It works most of the time. We learned it doesn't work for Thomas and Tom. Damn that H. But fuzzy logic is good, and we use that a lot for our deduplication. We use that a lot for member lookup within the AI agent, and we always had it built through the omni-channel platform within Service Cloud. So the agent can hand over to a live agent during business hours anytime it needs to, or at any time, similar to the big button that Michael mentioned. you can be passed on to a human if you want to during business hours. So that was always built into it too.
Yeah. Michael, we're talking a lot about Salesforce and the data that's kept within Salesforce. One of the things that we find with Salesforce is the data is fine if it's going to be used internally in the organization. You want to spring that data free and let the AI go free on the wider internet. One of the tools to do that with is Heroku, which many of our listeners today will have absolutely no idea about. I just said a word that they have no idea about. Please explain.
Yeah, Heroku is Salesforce's application build platform is probably the best way to describe it. So quite often you will need, if you want to build a mobile app or you want to build a website with a really responsive and pixel perfect portal for your customers to use, or you need to offload data processing off of Salesforce, or you need to run your agents to have actions which are run off on some other system that's not bound within Salesforce, that's really where Heroku comes to play. It's a platform as a service solution. So think of it a bit like Amazon, but with a very easy self-service curated environment to build your applications and run your applications on. So we use a lot of Heroku in Store Connect, and it runs all the front-end web servers. And then that system talks to every one of our clients, Salesforce orgs, directly to get the data we need, the product pricing and information and images and everything. It takes all that data, caches it in a local database, and then presents that to a world as a website and does the checkouts and sends everything back into Salesforce. So Heroku has been a big part of Salesforce for the last, I think it's about 10 years. They've been since they were bought by Salesforce. And really, it just gives you a way to build non-Salesforce applications powered by Salesforce data. And it's an area that, reinteractive know and love.
And and we love it because it's super easy to use. Like that is one of the big advantages which makes things like security concerns so much easier.
It's actually really interesting. You've got a lot of tools in Amazon and Google Cloud and Azure and all of these platforms, and they're incredibly powerful. And if you have the team to be able to maintain that, sure, go ahead. You'll probably save some money. Not a lot of companies are skilled up in order to have that sort of in-house resource looking after identity access management and rotating certificates and all these sorts of things that you need to build into a platform like that. And Heroku takes that pain away from you as an organization and lets you focus on what it is you're actually doing as a company. So you're focusing on building an app for your customers and so forth. You don't really need to worry about how do we scale to add a few extra users on Tuesday when we're featured in the news report. You can just tell Heroku just auto scale it and we'll look after it. So it's a very powerful platform from that point of view, and it's built very closely into the Salesforce ecosystem, which means it's quite easy to get data to and from Salesforce with Heroku. And it's just another integration layer you don't have to worry about.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of obviously what we're speaking about today, but a big fan of trying to keep your tools as uncomplicated as possible and all interconnected. So we know exactly where data is flowing. So an architectural diagram of where the data is going should be an easy thing to look at and understand. Yeah. And too often I see it so complicated and the people who are explaining it can't even explain it because they're not entirely sure.
Yeah, one of the big things we have at Store Connect is we've had clients come on to Store Connect from, say, Shopify. And as part of that migration, they have turned off upwards of 20 plus SaaS subscriptions.
Right.
And you go, well, what? But then you realize that to do anything on Shopify, you pretty much need a plugin, right? You need a plugin for subscriptions, you need a plugin for this, a plugin for that. Every one of those plugins has access, not everyone, but the vast majority have access to your customer data. That customer data is being stored off on some random Amazon server somewhere, most likely. You have no oversight over it. You have no control over it. And in this new age of security and compliance and data privacy and things like that, that starts becoming a really big risk. And we've found that, just simplifying that stack down and turning off those 20 SaaS subscriptions ends up paying for Store Connect and Salesforce anyway. In many cases, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, Rob, tell us about what the future looks like and what do we have to do today to prepare for that future? It's a very loaded question and one that inevitably will be slightly wrong, but go ahead. I've set you up.
Hey, good luck with that, Rob.
See you later, mate. I'm told AI will help me grow my hair back. So
Nice.
yeah, look, I think I read an article from MI3 which was titled "Data is the New Asbestos." Very interesting.
Good.
And it was talking about the privacy changes that are pretty much on the shores here in Australia. Been overseas for a while, but these changes are imminent here around privacy and data we collect. And there's one line in the draft, 300-page draft, for those who want to read the legislation that we're looking at bringing in for privacy. And this one line says, companies must be able to explain to a customer of below average intelligence, or as we call them, Manly Sea Eagles supporters. Just joking. My rivalry, my Bears are back in the NRL.
The views of Robert Lopez do not necessarily reflect the views of Reinteractive on this podcast.
So we've got to be able as a company to explain to customers of below average intelligence how we collect, manipulate, use, and destroy their data, and how we're using it to personalize their experience. So I put my CMO hat on for a second. And, companies that are advanced in the MarTech space will understand that we use data, especially engagement and behavioral and transactional data, all the time to personalize an experience. So AI is going to become another marketing member team. It just is. And it already sort of is now. And we've got to be really careful as we move forward around this whole AI personalization segmentation piece, because I would hate to think one day of a company that maybe sells alcohol and also has a junior chess club, and they're all in the one database, and they're doing a happy hour promotion, and AI builds a segment based purely on a gender, maybe doesn't look at age, and it sends it out, and all of a sudden somebody under 18 is getting a happy hour promotion. Can you imagine the risk associated with that?
Right, all over social media, all over.
Probably think about. I think the use of AI. If we go back 12, 18 months when AI was a thing again, all of a sudden ChatGPT was out. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, look at this! Is amazing." There was three things that everyone spoke about, and that was bias, toxicity, and hallucinations. Right. Those were the three concerns that were like, just be careful because it hallucinates. And if you ask it to draw a banana, it would always draw a bunch of bananas because it never didn't know a single and all this stuff. And, it's obviously gotten a lot better over time. Whereas now we're looking to the future and we're really wanting to understand the data that we've got, how are we securing that data, and how are we ensuring that the guardrails, as Michael mentioned, are in place and the AI is acting on its own accord ethically as another part of our organization, because you've got to treat it as part of your organization. And I'd love to know how many companies have an ethical use of AI policy or an AI policy in the company.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That's something that we've got to be looking at as the future's upon us. Companies have to be looking at it differently, and boards, CEOs, COOs, CROs, chief risk officers, risk and audit committees have to be on top of this right now, because it's going to become a far bigger problem if you're not on top of it.
Right. The security point as well comes into that. That is, are you putting data into it that you don't want someone else to see?
That's exactly right. Look at the Samsungs of the world. Look at all these examples where they put code in and it became public all of a sudden. It's like, oh no, what have we done? And there's no, backspace or Control Alt Delete Undo. There's none of that.
No, it's there for good. Yeah. But at the same time, we're at the precipice of this incredible opportunity to do the right thing for the future. And if we get it right now, then there is a legacy that we set for the future. And we get it wrong, and it has that effect too. Like it is this moment in time.
Yep. And you might have heard Frank Philman, Salesforce APAC CEO. He was on a panel and he said something that rung true. He said, just stop and take a look at where we are now because nothing will ever move as slow as it is now, ever again.
Right.
And that is so true. So
Right.
true. Like, it's unbelievable how true that actually is.
Right. Right. And as many of you have heard over and over again, right now is the worst these tools are ever going to be. They only get better from here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's going to take off and continue to take off, and it's going to come down to, what are the laws of robotics here? Like, it's going to be a really interesting world moving forward, and I think accepting help conditionally is a good motto to have in these times. You got to really look at how can we improve this, and remember that I think that in my view of the future, the price of human interaction and the value of human interaction is going to go way up.
Right.
The
value
of it is going to go way up. And if you as a company can work out, how do I leverage AI so that I can increase my human interactions and increase the connection, the human connection that I have with those people, that's where you're going to make bank. No one's interested in watching two AI bots play chess. They'll be the best players in the world. Won't matter. No one will give a shit. Right. I'm probably not meant to swear here, but no one's going to care about that, right?
All right. Unless you're the engineer that built it. That's the audience. Yeah.
But then that's the human aspect. That's who actually cares. That's the human thing. Their mum and dad's probably going to care as well, right? Yeah. No one else. And this is a really key thing. I think the book that I'm writing on customer commerce, the first chapter is be human. The more human that you can inject into a conversation, and the more you can empower your humans to have that human interaction by removing the drudgery, by removing the constant whatever it is that they're doing, the better that you'll be able to make it, and the more connection you'll have with your clients. The next thing for clients, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, even crazily last year, it was all about SEO and that sort of stuff. That's going away it will never really fully go away, but that's no longer the thing. The thing now, or the next thing that people need to do, is build communities. If you're not working out how to build a community with your target market, and you're also not working out how to make sure AI knows about you and your community, you're going to be in a world of pain, because it's spelt with AI, as Robert pointed out.
Yeah, right. So community,
community,
that interaction.
Figure out those connections. Yeah. And this is partially why we're getting such a large uptick, Errol, on the reinteractive side, with companies wanting to do similarly what North did in terms of making those mobile apps that are connected to their Salesforce data, because it helps you establish that human connection back into your source data. It gives them faster access to support. It gives them all that sort of information that they need, and building that community of relationship, and this is really where it comes into its own. And I think the companies that are moving correctly right now and focusing in on how do we do this, not to save some money on the OPEX side, although that's a nice side benefit, but how do we do this in order to create a more powerful, stronger, persistent, lasting, enduring human relationship with our target customers and our community? They're the ones that are going to win. And that's where you need to be investing your IT and your AI spend at the moment, I think.
Right. Yeah, that is actually a beautiful thing to say, and almost the point that I want to wrap up on, because I think that sums it up. The subject of this webinar is how to build an application on top of Salesforce so that it becomes the single source of truth. But actually, what we've gotten to here is something which is a little bit more important, which is how do you build an application that's actually going to communicate to your target audience in a way that's going to treat them like real people. Yeah. All right. So by way of wrapping up, Michael, is there anything you want to add, or anything that you want to say that perhaps we didn't cover off exactly?
I don't think so. I think that was my mic drop moment.
I think it was. I almost don't want to go on, but I've got to wrap up. So, Rob, what about yourself? Anything else that you think needs to be said on this subject?
Look, no, I think it's an exciting future. I think you grab the bull by the horn, take opportunity while it's there. Don't be scared. I think there's a lot of fear out there still, and not using it, not knowing where to start. have a simple use case, keep everybody aligned on a vision, and I think you can get some really quick wins out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. I'm going to say a couple of things to wrap up. One is if you want to speak to any of the people that you see here in this webinar, there's a link at the bottom there, and there'll be a QR code at the end as well. Jump on this link. You can book in a free consultation, mention who you'd like to speak to, and we will jump on. I'm going to bring it up again. That was too quick. We're happy to speak to any of you. 30-minute consultation, or we can make it longer, I'm sure. Rob, tell us about where people can find you, how they can find you, and what they can do with you once they've found you.
Yes, you can give me tonight's lotto numbers if you've got them. That'd be fantastic. So obviously finished up at North Collective, excited to very soon launch my own consulting. You'll see it there, Zeppel Consulting. People say, what's Zeppel? And I always say, hold it in front of the mirror and it might make sense. So I'm very excited to be supporting customers who are potentially looking at Salesforce. As I know, Michael's looking, going, I'm going to get a mirror. Hang on a second.
The gears were jerking for a second. You're going to have the mirror to the side, not in front.
Yes, that's right. So I'm offering fractional CMO support for companies that don't want a full-time CMO but need that, chief marketing officer support. And then the other arm of the business is Salesforce pre-sales support. Companies who are looking at Salesforce and would love to just do a 4 to 6 week sprint with someone who's been there, done that end to end, and can help build out a business case, strong use cases, stakeholder management plan, change management plan, and go signing the dotted line then with confidence behind the decision. And then companies who are really on their journey and just want a little bit more advice along the way as well. So add me on LinkedIn, and Zeppel will be launching in a couple of weeks, which is very exciting.
Awesome.
Nice.
And I'm sure you'll be popping up at various conferences as well, doing guest speaker roles.
You'll see me.
Michael, tell us about where.
Yeah, Store Connect is at getstoreconnect.com. You can reach out there. Obviously, I'm still the founder of Reinteractive. I'm not so much day-to-day operations, but if you want to talk to me, you can get a hold of Errol. Happy to do any sort of, brief, spend half an hour on the phone and explore some opportunities, both with Store Connect and without. With Reinteractive, but yeah, getstoreconnect.com is where you can find me.
Yeah, magnificent. I'd like to thank you both very, very much for coming on today. I know that you both have very busy schedules, but I appreciate you both coming on, and maybe we can do this again sometime because I feel like we could talk all day. Just before I finish, you saw one of the founders or the founder of Ruby on Rails, DHH, did a webinar, a podcast with what's his name?
Lex Friedman. Yeah,
Lex
6
Friedman.
hours
Thank
long.
you. 6 hour long podcast.
Wow.
I have to admit I didn't listen to all of it yet.
I actually listened to it on my daily 5K walks because I do a walk every day.
Oh yeah.
5K. So that's an hour a day that I have of reflection time, and I just played it. It was actually, it was a good listen. He covered a lot of topics. And it was quite interesting. But yeah,
they're both very listenable people.
Oh yeah, definitely. They've both got opinions, and they're not afraid to say them. And like them or love the opinions, it's an interesting listen when you listen to someone with opinions, because at least you've got something to grab against. They're not sitting there trying to play both sides or anything. They're both just, nope, this is what I think. And at least they've got a viewpoint, and like it or love it or hate it, it's a viewpoint, and it was quite enjoyable.
Absolutely. Nothing wrong with having an opinion.
That's right.
It's our superpower as humans.
Do well.
Thank you both very much for attending today. I very much appreciate it. Like I said, if anybody wants to get onto us, there's a QR code that I'm about to show. So thank you very much, and we'll see you for the next one. Thanks you.
All. Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.